We're going to open this session by beginning to tune in to the back of the body and how it's relating to the floor. So come and lay down with your legs bent. You could have a head cushion there in place if that made you feel a little bit more comfortable in this position. And you could take a feet and knees together and a toes apart, heels into line, just to ensure that initially the feet are working alongside each other. So notice, get a sense of the bonier landmarks. So the shoulder blades, the rib cage, and the back of the pelvis. We're looking to keep falling into the back of ourselves whilst we're moving as well. So with the arms beside you, begin to tip the contents of the torso over to one side. Transfer the weight back through the center, and same thing with that feeling of really letting go, falling into the back of yourself, transferring the weight to the opposite side. Without drawing the front body in tight, could you be aware of the front of you falling, softening, and connecting into the back of the body? Now, the movement itself may very well look like side to side, swinging the legs side to side, but actually, because it has brought about some heaviness through the torso and feeling the torso position change against the floor, what initiates the movement is the main body of yourself as opposed to the pelvis and the legs. Now you can see it doesn't mean to say that the pelvis and the legs don't move, of course, but they're really moving as a response to the tipping of the contents of the pelvis and the torso, as opposed to the weight and them letting go, as you can do in other movements. The breath out is often helpful. So if you find particularly that you're trying and you're holding the body weight up and forward as it tips, use an exhale. Just notice the body's ability to soften back. And you may also begin to feel that across the front of the hips as well as the front of the thighs. Yes, it's a noticing task, but it's also beginning to help with this sense of ease through the front and connection with the floor behind you. If you pause, feel free to gradually slow down the movement to get to that still place. You're going to draw your knees separately into your chest. So just folding simply at the front of the hip, taking hold of one of your legs and folding front of the opposite hip. You'll notice the shins and feet, they're going to relax down. And if for some reason this degree of bend in the knee is a little bit too much for you, you could put a cushion back here, or as we're going to move the legs separately in this particular move, you could place two small soft balls underneath the backs of the knees. Now, just in being here, you have a similar response from the body in that you're falling into the back of yourself, really just playing around with the flexibility through the segments of the spine and just allowing the weight of the back ribs and through the back of the waist just to naturally fall to the mat if they want to. And it might take some time if they're showing that they're a little bit held and rigid. Again, maybe the front ribs are a little prominent, but be patient. Take your time. As I mentioned, hands are going to be on the knees. And what you're going to look at doing initially is circling the thigh bones within the hips. Now, in the main, this is going to feel like arm-led. It's an arm exercise, you could think of it in that way. In order that The legs can stay relaxed, particularly the front of the feet, shins, and also the front of the hips. So you have this real gentle drawing in deep of the thigh bones. So I'm applying a little touch of pressure to the knees and just seeing whether with that I can create a little bit of symmetry. And the movement itself is small. Change direction. As you know, we're oiling up through the hip joints as well. And often a small movement is really all that's required. So if you're feeling restricted, that's fine for this particular movement. You also might notice whether there's any bias through the center of the pelvis. So is there a tendency for you to lean towards one side or the other of the sacrum? Just about be able to detect that. Again, that would just require you to send the opposite thigh bone a little deeper. Just notice how that feels now in response. Pause when the legs are next back, next to each other, if that's comfortable for you to be there. And then as you brought your legs up separately, you're also going to take your legs back down towards the mat separately. If you have had a head cushion in place there, take it away. Get a sense of the back of the head against the floor for the first time. Notice the warmth you've created through the body already. Notice your body's ability to continue to stay heavy. You may very well feel that the lower back curve is different here and now to how it was when you first laid yourself down. So again, you could check with the feet that they're working alongside each other, arms are relaxed. Take a breath in through the nose, and as you breathe out through the mouth, stand into the feet and hover the pelvis. You're tilting the pelvis towards the rib cage as the hips are lifting. Looking to utilize the warmth you've created through the hips as you extend there, looking for space through the front of you. And as you're coming down, you'll use your breath out, the softening through the upper body to return back down to the mat. Breath out through the mouth. Down, hovering, tilting, and reaching the knees away. Using the breath to guide the movement, particularly in this case, the softening of the movement. So whilst you may feel grounded through the feet initially, as the back of you is driving the hips up, there is a softening through the front of yourself. You'll take a breath in here, and as you breathe out once more, soften. And it may very well be that the whole front of the face, as well as the body and the sighing, softens as you come down. So we've looked at moving straight up and straight down through the center with that initial bridge. What we're going to begin to add in is some movement through the pelvis, just to once more establish whether there's any bias on the right or the left side. Sometimes you can discover that really based on how hard you're having to work to drop one side of the pelvis down. So this is side-to-side pelvic tilts. You're beginning to put some rotation through the body. You could refer back to that heaviness on one side of you as you tilt the pelvis. But in this movement particularly, you're looking to keep the legs still, in that they're not going to be swaying side to side. Notice how that feels. The thigh bones will feel that they're lengthening away from you as the same side pelvis lifts to the ceiling. And often it's a little easier to establish the movement if you give yourself a little bit more feedback by placing the hands onto the front of the pelvis. So feel free to use that tactile touch if it works for you. So as I mentioned, we've already taken our bridging movement and we've looked at moving straight up and straight down the spine with the idea of softening, particularly to help us come down, but also to help with the front body going up there. What we're going to look to do here is bridge whilst in the side-to-side pelvic tilt. So we've dropped down on the right side, the left hip bone is lifted. You may feel that the left thigh bone is just slightly reaching up more into an open hip than the right thigh bone. As you breathe out once more, you're going to soften. Stand into the feet. You're looking to peel the spine away just on the right side. So by the time you get to the top of the bridge, you still have both sides of the spine connected, but there's a little bit more of a bias to the right. Maybe you feel the right shoulder blade a little bit more than the left. If you square yourself off, and you can do that by pushing down into the right foot, feel the balance between the shoulder blades, but then drop once more. Real subtle movement. The drop would have you transferring that little bit of extra weight to the right shoulder blade and then exhaling just as you did when you moved straight up and straight down. Falling into the back of the right ribs, heavy through the lungs, spreading down the body, heavy through the front of the rib cage, wide through the sit bones if you can add that in, and bringing yourself back to center. Drop down into the left now and lift the right hip bone, taking a breath in. As you breathe out, soften, stand, looking to tilt the pelvis as you're heading up in the same way, but this time if you were to look towards the pelvis, you have your slanted diagonal of your hips. You're still reaching, but of course, you're a little more through the left shoulder blade than the right. As you breathe out and you exhale, imagine the back left ribs really spreading as they're coming down. So the waist and the pelvis are still looking to be further away from the head as they end up there, and then bringing yourself back to center. I'm going to cross over and take a couple more here. So as you're breathing out and you're dropping and softening, peeling and tilting. At the top each time, you're going to center yourself, use your feet, come back into the tilt, and then exhale to spread and bring the body back down. Find the center, crossing over to the other side. Breathing out, softening and standing and tilting. reaching, centering yourself. Back to the tilt whilst up at the top, sort of feeling and finding this through your connection with the back of the body on the mat, and then bringing yourself all the way back down again. Having done some movement up the right and the left side, and you may have moved quicker, taken a few more repetitions, just make sure you finish and you have done the same amount on both sides. And then just to finish, we're going to move straight up the center, exhaling as you do, softening, hovering and tilting. And just to finish back where we initially started. Breath out, sighing, to return all the way back down to where we started. So knees and feet are heading in together, wider with the arms. It could be palms up, could be palms down, really wherever you feel comfortable, depending on space and the width that you've got to with the arms themselves. Now we head into side to side. One of your legs is just going to gently push into the other as the pelvis rolls onto the side. You'll see that one foot is stacked on top of the other. Take a breath in here. And as you breathe out, looking to move from the pelvis once more, bring the pelvis back to the center position. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, once more, opposite side, alternating as we go. Top leg is going to push the bottom leg down and away. Of course, that is carrying the pelvis as well. As you breathe out, the pelvis is going to reconnect across the mat. So you're looking to maintain the length you might have achieved from one of the sides. So a nudging of a thigh bone, a traveling of the pelvis, and then especially as you return, exhaling, the length you've achieved here, you're looking to maintain. So as the pelvis moves across the mat, just notice, keep long through that side of the waist. And again, once more, exhaling, leg pushes. Just to start you off, it doesn't have to keep pushing. It's initiating the movement from there today. And as you breathe out, pelvis returns long through the waist as it comes back. So trying to increase the space there. Couple more. And as the legs sway to that last side, you're going to use them to roll yourself over onto your side. And we're going to have a look at rotation through the upper body with your book openings. So grabbing your cushions, organizing yourself, really making sure that the underneath shoulder and arm are well placed to give you some space there. And then your knees are bent, feet stacked. As you breathe out, opening your top arm and looking to the ceiling and leaving the legs behind. Heavy inhale when you're open, and then exhaling to bring you back to your starting position. Breath out, looking to the hand. Falling into the back of that side. Keeping the length through the waist in a similar way to how you did with side to side, but it's going to come from the legs. So be aware of the legs. lifting away from the floor. Be aware of the knees parting. That could be another way in which you just lose that length. And last one here. Take yourself over onto your second side. Again, really organize well here as we move round. Take your breath in. Using your cushion, heavy with the head, just allowing it to fall into your support. And also looking to use the exhales, they're there for that heaviness, that softening if you like. Wide and expansive as you breathe in. Notice particularly laying on your side how your top side is free there. Really breathing in and expanding the ribs on that free side. It's not only going to give you extra exhale to play with, it's also going to give you some freedom through the muscles between the ribs. Freedom through the diaphragm on that free side. The last one. Once you've closed there, bring yourself back onto your back. You don't need any head cushions. We're going to head into chest lift, and we're looking at doing the long version of chest lift. So bringing yourself onto your back, and as always, can you check in with the position of your ribs and pelvis? If you take a beat or two here, you may be able to sense any change again in comparison to how you felt when you initially took any head pads away there on your back. And then interlacing the hands and taking them behind the head, your thumbs are pointing downwards. If you can ensure that your elbows are in view, it really comes from the position of the shoulder blades then, just hugging the ribs. Imagine that curved U shape from elbow to elbow, dropping down, spread ribs across the spine and back up again. As you breathe out, send your lower back ribs into the mat and curl yourself forwards. Breathe in and reach and hold. As you breathe out, elbows are widening, torso is deepening. Inhaling, and the arms are going to head back to the back of the head. Drop into the hands and go again. So breathing out from the lower back ribs. Breathing in, reaching and holding. Use the exhale to drive the back body. It's going to create more length there. Hands come back behind the head and then gently dropping the head into the hands, aware of your elbows, aware of your shoulder position. You have a frame then for the face. With this one, we're going to stay up. Because I'd like you to stay up and reach and hold the legs. Draw yourself up that little bit higher. Now, as you lay down here, just drag the balls of the feet towards the pelvis and unravel the back of the body, as well as opening through the back of the knees. Imagine you've taken your very first roll down from seated. We're looking to start your assisted roll up from this place. If you'd prefer to come to seated to begin, because you need to use some cushions, then of course do so. Otherwise, as you breathe out, if you think of the low back ribs pushing back once more, and you're looking to achieve the same roundness through the blades, even though the hands aren't behind your head anymore, that's going to help with the curving through the upper spine to bring you all the way up to seated. And then, of course, it may be that you grab your cushions from here. We're looking to be in the back of the legs, hence why there's this subtle push down into your mat and spread away. Just notice how you are looking to drop into the cupped hands with the back of you, free through the front of your clothing here, dragging the balls of the feet back to you just when you need them, and then laying yourself back down again. As you breathe out, legs can move away, back ribs push back, rounded through the body, as long as you can there, keeping that curve. We're looking roughly for shoulders finding top of the pelvis and then bringing ourselves back up into a lengthened upright spine. Notice your breath. We're going to take one more of these down and up. And then we'll look to head part way down, moving into our single leg stretch. Exhaling legs. And pausing when you're up. So here, you're not going to end up all the way down on your mat after this one. You're using your feet in the same way. You're looking for that freedom through the front of the clothing, front of the hips. And then you're going to use your arms to keep your body up in the curl up, round through the shoulder blades. One of your knees is drawing in towards you and the other leg is reaching long. There is a feeling of pushing up towards the ceiling with the bent shin bone. You'll take a breath in and switch twice. And you'll take a breath out and switch twice. Inhale and exhale. Inhaling and exhaling. Last one. Using the breath out to indicate the end for you. Knees will come in tight and head will lay all the way down. Move your hands onto your shins. Relax your shins and feet once more. We're going to take you into the prep for double leg stretch. You're breathing in and taking an arm arc, arms to ears. Breathing out and circling the arms out to the side and drawing the knees in once more. Breathing in, reaching in two directions. Breathing out, circling and coming back into your tuck. Inhaling. Exhaling. Now notice how the arms come to the side of the head. So as the side of the head changes its position as you open, send the back ribs back and come back into the tuck, you're aware that the next time the arms reach, they're not going to feel like they're traveling quite as far backwards. Breathe in, circle, and hold. Breathe in, circle, and hold. 2 more. Last one. Lay yourself down and bring your feet separately down onto the floor. From here, we're going to head on up and we're going to move into Mermaid. So you're going to face your screen and you're looking to have your left leg in front as a starter if a Z-sit is good for you, and your right leg behind you. We're heading into Mermaid. We're looking at continuously bending from side to side. So here you are starting with the right arm lifted and the fingertips keep reaching up there just to begin to open up the side of the body without the bend. And then of course you're going to allow the elbow to soften and give to take you over onto that left side. You're going to switch the arms in between and keep reaching upwards. Now, really important to listen into how it feels as you head over to this side. Notice how it does feel like it's reaching up a little bit more as opposed to going over. So one of the sides just might feel like it's a little bit larger. Maybe there's a little bit more of a give through that side. Of course, as you're heading to the leg that is turned in, not as possible to take yourself all the way up and over there. So breathing in to reach up and absorb the floor as you breathe out. Each time you breathe in then, you're looking to find the center, arms out to the side. Also be aware, shoulder positions have to change. You have a shoulder blade down and a shoulder blade up. In the middle, could they feel balanced? Can you find your neck? Can you find the length through the middle of yourself? As you bend up and over towards your back leg next, you're going to pause there. And as you come out of that side bend, we're going to switch the legs. So one of your legs comes to the front now, and the other comes behind you. Remembering that you do have those alternative positions you can come into, a long sit, or the back leg can come out and straight over the top of the front leg. Give yourself a moment. Take a breath in. The first few can be a little bit slower, just as you begin to pattern, but also notice. And then really depending on how it feels, you could have this continuous idea of breath. Breathing in. Shoulders, center of the body, emerging from the shoulder girdle through the center, easy through the tops of the shoulders each time. And then as you bend up and over towards the back leg next, we're going to pause there and relax the arm. Unravel. Take your time with the back leg, and then we're going to head onto our front. Feel free as you come down to grab cushions. If you'd prefer to have your head resting down as opposed to the forehead hover. Hand position, well, it's as wide as your mat as you come here. And you're already finding this space across the front of the chest. Walk your legs away from your pelvis. We have just opened up through the top of the hip, but walk them away as a just in case. And then from here, crown of the head is reaching forwards. Collarbones are widening. Sternum is looking to free itself as the blades move back. And then as you breathe out, you're heading back to your starting position. Breathing in. And breathing out to return. Forehead will come on hands. Send the pelvis down, reach the leg away and come into single leg kick. We've looked at these movements recently. Remember, you have the grounding through the front of the pelvis to create the hover. You've got your in, you're reaching the leg away and you're resting it down. Pelvis, in. And depending on how that feels for you, still looking at having a little bit of space between the feet so you can feel that. Bring yourself up onto your forearms, wide through the chest. It does feel a little different when the hands are supporting you, but they're way out in front of the shoulders. But you're still looking to utilize the upper back, so stay wide. Feel free to drop a little closer to the floor or return back to the position in which we started. Here is lift up through the front of the pelvis, as opposed to allowing the front of the body to push downwards, imagining that it's pulling long and upwards. Last one. Extend away and rest down. Lower your body down completely before bringing yourself up into a child's pose. Something that has you back in that round position, pelvis to floor, back of the head relaxed. And taking your time, just beginning to unravel and bringing yourself back up to the center. And then once you've found your orientation in your room once more, you have an option to tuck the toes under, take yourself into a nice loose roll down position and reverse your roll up. Or you can just take your step up. Now, I say just take, but of course it can be quite challenging. Bring yourself up onto knees. Take the body weight forward. So as the leg goes forward, you also goes forward. Because the weight of the head traveling in that direction is ultimately going to help you come all the way up. We're heading into our standing roll down, toes are pointing forwards, arms are hanging loose down beside you. Finding your feet. So spreading the toes if you like that, but just sort of fidgeting around there and just finding the feet either against your mat or your floor. And then as you breathe out, lowering the gaze. Sigh. Soften. And again, that softening may very well be the face and the gaze as much as it is the front of the body. Your knees are relaxing as you head down there. As you breathe out, lift through the back of the clothing to bring yourself all the way up to your starting position. Exhaling. Notice. It isn't a requirement to complete an exercise if you could benefit by pausing at any time. So here it may be that if you pause and hang loose, you just create a little bit more give somewhere, as opposed to taking the movement down into a lower range and missing out on that opportunity. As you get to the bottom of the movement next, you're going to walk forward onto your hands. So the pelvis has that feeling it does in a spine stretch, sort of pouring the rest of the body up and out of it, which takes you out onto your hands. You're wide through the back of the body. And then you're sending the heels backwards and downwards as you walk back to your feet and you soften. And then as you're breathing out, to come up once more, loose, unforced, continuous if you can. And when you're up there, well done. We're done. Any questions, do let me know. Otherwise, take care.